Have you ever poured effort, discipline, and strategy into your life only to return to the same patterns, the same sense of limitation, the same emotional gridlock? You may have read books, watched videos, taken courses, and still felt stuck in the same version of you. It's frustrating, it's exhausting, and here's why. The real barrier may not be your actions, it may be your identity. The law of identity teaches that your behavior, decisions, feelings, and life trajectory are always rooted in the image you hold of yourself. Your mind, heart, and soul operate according to your internal identity imprint. If your identity remains limited, nothing you do from the outside will transform what's inside. And transformation from the outside alone only lasts for so long. Tracy puts this truth simply. You always act in a manner consistent with the image you have of yourself. That identity is not just an idea. It's not just a story you tell. It's the emotional and energetic system from which everything else unfolds. It determines your habits, decisions, and even the people you attract or repulse. When you believe you're a struggler, you act like one. When you believe you're limited, you stay limited, even when opportunity knocks. The spiritual dimension of identity is also reflected in Proverbs 23:7. As he thinks in his heart, so he is. In that biblical context, heart means the inner source, where beliefs, emotions, values, and identity converge. It's not just about thinking. It is about what the soul accepts as truth, and that truth becomes destiny. It's not what you say you want. It's who you think you are that shapes your life. So if your life keeps reflecting the same reality, maybe the problem is not your strategy, but your identity. You may be doing all the right things, affirmations, goal plans, spiritual disciplines, but until your internal identity aligns with the person you long to become, those external actions will bounce off. They push effort against an internal limitation that simply can't hold the new weight. This is not about blame. It's not about failure. It's about understanding a spiritual design. You are not powerless. You are not misunderstood. You are resonating with an identity architecture. And until that architecture is rebuilt, your results will echo your self-image, from fear-based survival, resignation, or lack. But here's the beautiful part. Identity is not fixed. Identity can be discovered, upgraded, expanded, and intentionally rewired through presence, truth, and spiritual clarity. From the very second you realize that your identity is the foundation, your transformation begins. It starts with resonance. When you begin to think, feel, and speak truth aligned with who you truly are, not who you've been conditioned to be, you release energy to live differently. The shift may not be immediate, but it is inevitable when identity is recalibrated. And here's what you must understand. The world doesn't change you. You change you. Life responds to identity, not demand. In the first minute of this video, I want you to hear this clearly. Your results reveal your identity. Your beliefs program your destiny. Your inner image, the subconscious identity, determines what you attract, what you tolerate, and what you create. That realization sets a new tone. If this insight has already stirred something in you, don't wait. Subscribe now. In this channel, you'll learn weekly how to repattern identity through truth, spiritual alignment, and emotional consistency. You'll discover how to shift your internal core, the root that enables new branches of possibility in career, relationships, health, mindset, and spiritual alignment. This content is free, but it's not empty. It's not just theory. It transforms people who are serious about becoming who they were designed to be. Because changing your identity, not just your routine, is the only way to build lasting change. Now take a moment and reflect. Who have you been believing you are? a survivor, a victim of circumstances, someone limited by background, experiences, or past failure. That identity has been silently steering your life. Now it's time to ask, who am I choosing to be instead? In the next segment, we'll explore how identity forms. We'll trace the layers beneath your habits and beliefs, spiritual truth, emotional resonance, and subconscious identity programming. And we'll begin the process of replacing that identity. Not what you imagine or wish, but what you choose to embody by faith, clarity, and spiritual alignment. Your life will always reflect the identity you live out, from who you were to who you are to who you will become. Let this be the moment you understand that your life is not limited by what happened. It's limited by who you believe yourself to be, and that can be changed. Let's walk that path together.
As a young boy walked past a bustling circus grounds, he stopped in his tracks at the sight of a massive elephant standing motionless, its trunk held low, tied to a slender stake with a simple rope. Curious and puzzled, he turned to the trainer beside him and asked plainly, "Can that elephant not break free?" The trainer offered a calm smile and replied, "When that elephant was just a calf, we tied it with the exact same rope and stake. At first, it pulled, struggled, and tugged, but it couldn't break free. Over time, the calf learned that nothing worked. Eventually, it stopped trying to escape. Now, despite having the strength to uproot trees or topple barriers, it never tries, because it believes the rope still holds it." That simple tale captures the reality for countless human beings. People of incredible capacity, talent, and strength remain emotionally tethered, bound not by real chains, but by ancient beliefs formed in childhood, trauma, criticism, fear, and limiting circumstances. They behave not according to what they can do, but according to the self-image they carry. Brian Tracy encapsulates this truth. You don't act in line with your potential. You act in line with the image you hold of yourself. This invisible law of identity creates fences far more confining than any physical barrier. No matter how wide open the field before you might be, if your internal identity says, "I am small," "I am powerless," or "I will fail," you will stay within the invisible limits of your belief. It is not your capacity that defines you. It is your self-perception. The Bible offers a profound example parallel to this idea. In Numbers 13, the spies sent to scout the Promised Land returned and reported, "We seemed like grasshoppers in our own eyes." Their fear and distorted identity prevented them from stepping into a land that was theirs, a land they could have possessed, because internally they believed themselves unworthy, incapable, or too small. Despite divine promise and assistance, that internal identity carried more weight than destiny. In both stories, of the elephant and the spies, the limitation is not external. It is entirely internal. It is the belief, the self-image, the perception of limitation that shackles possibility more than any physical rope. Let's pause and reflect. You may be reading this with frustration or resolve. You may sense that your life hasn't changed despite effort. You may be successful in some areas, but still feel held back in others. That internal boundary, invisible yet powerful, may be the main force keeping you from what you've been trying to build or become. That boundary was built upstream. It began in childhood messages, perhaps the words of teachers, parents, or peers that said, "You're not enough. You can't handle success. You don't belong." Trauma added bricks. Fear shaped each reaction. Doubt solidified the seam. Over time, your inner self accepted the limit, not because it was true, but because it had been repeated enough that it became default. Now think of who you would be if that rope didn't exist. If you remembered your own strength and you believed it fully. If your identity was aligned with potential, dignity, creativity, healing, responsibility. If your subconscious began to hold new truths, I am worthy of abundance, I am guided and capable, I belong, I contribute, I am significant. Your actions would shift, behavior would follow identity. You would not just work harder, you would break free. Because you are no longer resisting, you are becoming the expression of what you genuinely believe yourself to be. This law of identity is unavoidable. Whether you choose it consciously or not, you are already living by default identity. You are already manifesting consistent patterns, relationships, circumstances, even up to your body's chemistry, according to what your core self believes to be true. But the good news is identity can be changed. You are not destined to repeat past programming. You do not have to live tethered to fear or limitation. Transformation begins at the root. It begins with questioning the rope. It begins with recognizing that the rope was tied once, long ago, and doesn't carry real power unless you still believe it does. In the next segment, we will explore how to identify the rope, those limiting beliefs deeply hidden, and how to dismantle them. We will learn how to reconstruct identity from truth, from spiritual alignment, from emotional coherence, and from empowered self-definition. Because the moment you realize the tape loop of identity is older than your present, you begin to see cracks. And where cracks appear, light can enter. Step by step, thought by thought, you can align with who you choose to become, not who you were told you are. And as identity shifts, the internal fence dissolves. You rise beyond old limits. You begin to live from power, alignment, and possibility. So, as you step into the next part of this video, let this story of the elephant be your mirror. Do not fear your past identity. Acknowledge it. Then choose differently. Believe better. Reinvent your self-image. Let your life reflect the new standard you embrace. After all, you were never designed to stay tied to old limiting beliefs. You were designed to grow into the fullness of who you truly are.
Your brain was not designed to make you happy. It was designed to keep you safe and efficient. That's a euphemism. It will repeat whatever you believe to be true, regardless of how limiting or outdated that belief is. If you carry a self-image that says, "I'm not enough," or "success isn't for people like me," or "true love will never be mine," guess what? Your brain will look for constant evidence to confirm just that. Brian Tracy explains this clearly. The image you have of yourself becomes a filter. Anything outside that filter is automatically rejected. That filter is powerful. It anchors what you see, feel, and act on. Opportunities arrive, but you sabotage them. Relationships come close, but you keep emotional distance. Growth shows up, yet you retreat to safety. It is not because you lack talent or desire. It is because your internal self-image overrides every external possibility. Let's bring in modern understanding. Your brain literally builds your identity through repetition. Neuroscience and spiritual wisdom converge here. Joe Dispenza writes, "Your personality becomes your personal reality, and your personality is shaped by how you think, feel, and act." Every repeated thought, every habitual emotion, Every action rooted in fear or limitation rewires your neural pathways. Carolyn Leaf adds, each thought creates physical connections in your brain. Your identity is literally built by what you repeat. In other words, your subconscious mind doesn't evaluate logic, charisma, or desire. It only executes programming. And that programming is written by identity. So, if you've been striving to change your life through willpower, strategies, or external motivation, and still feel stuck, this is why. Your external efforts are often defeated by an internal identity program that is running on autopilot. Until your self-image changes, every external push will eventually bounce off. That is not failure, that is design. It's why identity work is not optional, it's foundational. If identity is unchanged, your brain keeps running the same old script, salvaging confirmations of the same old version of you. The Bible frames this process in spiritual language in 2 Corinthians 10:5. We take captive every thought to make it obedient to Christ. Spiritual transformation is deeply aligned with the neurological principle of mental dominance. It's not suppressing thought, it's taking authority over it. Every thought is either affirming the old programming or instructing the new. You are responsible for what identity your brain is tuned to. Imagine waking up one day and seeing yourself. Attention anchored in negative habits, expectations low, instinct to shrink activated. That is the identity your brain knows how to run. Opportunities may have come, but your internal operator refused them. Criticism or challenge might have triggered retreat. Comfort zones remained attractive because risk felt unnatural. That is behavior aligned with identity, not potential. Now, imagine a different scenario. You wake up knowing, I am capable. I am guided. I am enough. You have trained your physiology, your emotional presence, your mind with consistent practice. Gratitude, affirmations, small actions from aligned identity. You are not pretending, you are realigning. You repeat new truth until your brain no longer doubts, it trusts, and your brain will deliver evidence to match that trust. This is identity rewrite, not self-help platitude. It is neuroscientifically validated and spiritually empowered. Because identity, not desire, drives mass creation. Your brain wants survival, not growth. But your higher self wants expansion. The process of converting identity happens one thought at a time. One emotional shift, one repeated affirmation, one action anchored in new identity. And every time you do that, you retrain wiring, rewrite neural circuitry, and submit inner software to new commands. It's not easy, but it is simple. Because the brain likes repetition. Once it senses new commands are consistent, it stops fighting. It obeys. The old program fades. The new program becomes subconscious habit, and your actions begin to reflect what you now believe, not what your old identity dictated. This is not about denying the past. It's about not letting it define your future. You don't delete all memories, but you choose which identity you accept as default throughout your day. You overwrite old beliefs with truths anchored in spiritual purpose and emotional clarity. That is the moment when identity shifts from inherited, reactive program to intentional, aligned software. It is spiritual and neurological sovereignty. Your brain is not your enemy. It is the servant of identity. But identity is programmable through consistent input of thoughts, emotions, intentions, and aligned action. You literally get to reprogram your brain through identity. If you want a different life, it cannot come from old identity. It must come from renewed identity, a self-image grounded in truth, resilience, faith, and possibility. When identity changes, your brain begins to create reality that matches it. It stops filtering out possibility. Doors open, clarity comes, alignment increases. This principle might feel unseen, but its effects are tangible. When new identity takes root, your brain no longer becomes the prisoner. It becomes your ally in growth. It starts working not to hold you back, but to expand what becomes possible. So, here's the invitation. Begin feeding your brain new identity codes. Feed it consistent truth, thoughts anchored in purpose, emotions rooted in peace, actions aligned with your future self. It may feel awkward at first, but over time, coherence, alignment, and clarity emerge. That old filter, so long accepted, gradually dissolves. Because your self-image is the most powerful filter in your life. And now you know this: identity, not habit, anchors your destiny. The brain obeys the identity. It does not create beyond it. So it's time to renew your identity, to build who you are from the inside out. If you consciously choose new identity, your brain will follow the path you lay, and your life will begin to reflect it. That is not abstract. It is spiritual neuroscience, and it is your design path forward. In the next segment, we will walk through practical steps to build a new identity from awareness, truth, affirmation, behavior, and spiritual alignment. Because a new identity changes everything.
You cannot transform your identity through willpower alone. Real transformation comes through internal coherence, aligning your thoughts, emotions, and actions consistently day after day. That alignment is what rewrites the program at the root of who you are. Tracy emphasizes this point. Every real change begins with the decision to see yourself differently. Your identity is not a prison. It is a structure you can rebuild. You reshape who you are one thought, one emotion, one action at a time. And those small shifts add up quickly when they are intentional and consistent. To rebuild your identity, you need coherence. When your mind, heart, and body operate from the same version of you, you stop fighting internal resistance. Instead, you become the executor of your evolved self. Here are 3 powerful tools to achieve that coherence. 1. Affirmations with clarity and emotion. Speak your identity as if it is already real. Do not declare with the lips alone. You must feel it in your body. For example, you might say, I am disciplined, I am worthy, I am prosperous, but inside you feel doubt, unworthiness, or scarcity. The affirmation dissipates, it becomes hollow. Instead, inhabit the words. Say them from a place of knowing. Let your heart resonate. Let your posture align. Let your breath carry conviction. When you speak identity with emotional coherence, your subconscious hears new commands. Neural patterns begin to shift. A new energetic blueprint takes shape. 2. Identity visualization. Close your eyes and imagine who you want to become. Visualize the person you consistently show up as. Morning routines, posture, habits, relationships, tone of voice. Picture yourself handling challenge with calm, choosing discipline over distraction, giving generously, walking with quiet confidence. Neville Goddard taught this principle. Feel yourself to be what you want to be, and you become. That inner rehearsal maps new pathways in the brain. It's not fantasy, it's bio-spiritual encoding. Your subconscious brain begins to accept this new identity as a possible default. Over time, you no longer need to imagine, you begin to embody. 3. Micro-actions that prove new identity. Every small action aligned with your desired self builds evidence for your brain. Your brain interprets repeated behavior as identity truth. If you want to be disciplined, wake up 10 minutes earlier. If you want to be confident, speak eye to eye. If you want to be generous, give a little, even if it's small. These micro-actions matter because they signal to your subconscious, this is who I choose to be. Over days, weeks, months, those micro-evidences accumulate. Eventually, your internal system stops rejecting the new identity and begins to accept, yes, this is me now. A spiritual truth echoes this process. In Ephesians 4:22-24, we read, "Put off your old self and be renewed in the spirit of your mind, and put on the new self, created after God in true righteousness and holiness." This is not religious rhetoric, it is spiritual neuroscience. The old self is identity built on outdated beliefs. The new self is identity aligned with destiny and truth. You cast off old habits, you align with new identity. That alignment shapes your life. So how do these tools work together? Imagine beginning your day with a clear affirmation that resonates in your chest. Then, you visualize yourself moving through your tasks as the person you choose to become, calm, focused, generous, empowered. Then, you take small action, the early wake, the generous gesture, the moment of self-discipline. By evening, your brain has received signals from mind, heart, and body that converge into internal coherence. As days pass, the power shifts. Your identity is no longer aspirational, it becomes structural, a reality, an anchor. Your transformation is no longer external work, it is internal design. The outer world begins to respond because you are now acting from the identity you want, not the identity you've inherited. This coherence is critical. Many people affirm, visualize, or act, but in isolation. They say new things with their lips, but feel differently inside. They visualize a new self in scattered distraction. They take actions that contradict their internal identity. That fragmentation sustains the old pattern. You must unify the triad. Thought, feeling, behavior must all align with your new identity. When that happens, when what you think, feel, and do come from the same frequency, change becomes inevitable. What might identity transformation look like, practically? Let's say you long to be someone who is capable and calm under pressure. You affirm, I am composed and decisive. You feel it in your chest as a steady calm. You visualize handling a difficult conversation with poise. You wake up a little earlier, plan your day with intention, breathe deeply at stressful moments. Your brain begins to associate pressure with calm power, not fear. Over time, your internal image shifts. What once triggered anxiety now triggers aligned identity. Your nervous system changes. Your choices become consistent with new patterns. People begin to respond differently. Opportunities show up because your internal coherence has reprogrammed your energy field. Remember, identity is not about perfection. It's about consistency. Small missteps aren't failure. They're part of the process. What matters is returning to coherence, choice by choice, repetition by repetition. Identity reprogramming doesn't require grand gestures. It requires faithful alignment across mind, heart, and action. As you continue this video, keep this truth in view. Identity is built through coherence. You are not trying to become someone you're not. You're choosing to embody who you truly are beneath old narratives. You're not chasing goals. You're aligning with the identity that naturally attracts them. Take the tools you've just learned, affirmation, visualization, microaction, and begin weaving them daily into your routine. Commit to consistency. Monitor internal alignment. Adjust as needed. The new identity you cultivate will hold you, guide you, and express through you. This is the moment you set the invisible field. This is the moment your life begins to truly reflect who you believe yourself to be. Ready to walk this path of identity transformation? Let's explore next how to integrate emotional coherence with spiritual alignment, reinforcing the internal rebuild until identity becomes destiny.
Everything you experience in your external world is a mirror of what exists inside you. Your identity is the root, the origin. Reality is merely the fruit. And just like a tree, the condition of the root determines the quality of the harvest. You may be trying to change outcomes, more money, better relationships, greater peace. But if you're not tending to the root, the fruit will always fall short. A life built on fear produces limitation. A life built on scarcity produces stagnation. But when your internal root is planted in clarity, faith, and power, the results transform. The harvest becomes vibrant, strong, abundant, free. Brian Tracy concludes this lesson with sharp clarity. You will never rise above the image you have of yourself, but you can change that image at any moment. That's the power of the identity principle. It doesn't chain you to your past, it invites you to rewrite the script. Because the image you carry of yourself is not permanent, it is programmable. And when that internal image shifts, your life changes with it. Your thoughts may try to force change. Your emotions may beg for a different outcome, but unless identity aligns with what you desire, the old patterns will keep recycling. That's why surface-level action is often temporary. You get results, but they slip away. You feel empowered, but the old self returns because the root was never addressed. That root, the core of who you believe yourself to be, sets your limits. It shapes what you tolerate, what you pursue, what you repel. It defines the lens through which you interpret life, and that lens either opens doors or keeps them invisible. The Apostle Paul in Romans 12:2 puts it plainly, "Be transformed by the renewing of your mind." He didn't say, fight harder. He didn't say, earn more. He said, renew. That word is loaded with truth. Renewal implies that you don't need to become someone else. You simply need to clear the distortions. Remove the layers that cloud who you are in truth, and let that true identity rise. It's not about chasing a future version of you. It's about releasing the false selves that have been running your life. Identities planted by past pain, criticism, failure, and fear. Because underneath those false selves is a true identity that's already equipped, already worthy, already aligned with the life you desire. And here's the truth. You don't need to fight for a better life. You need only become the person who naturally lives that life. Identity first, results follow. You say you want peace? Then become someone who trusts more deeply. You say you want abundance? Then become someone who believes they are worthy to receive. You say you want love? Then become someone who gives and honors love with clarity. This is not about pretending, it's about aligning, because when your identity shifts, everything else does too. What you once chased now finds you. What you once feared now dissolves. What you once resisted now flows. And it all begins with the decision, not to do more, but to be more, to choose a new image, to align with a higher truth, to act from the place where your identity and your destiny finally meet. This is the invitation, not to force change, but to align with who you already are at your best. So, choose today to plant a new root, and trust that a new fruit will come, not by striving, but by becoming. This is the core of the identity law. When you see yourself differently, you act differently. When you act differently, you attract differently. And when you attract differently, your life unfolds from a new script. That is not magic. That is alignment. So as we close this video, make a conscious choice. Choose the identity that reflects your highest truth. Comment below. Today, I choose a new identity. I am strong, guided, and free. And if this message resonated with something deep inside you, don't wait. Subscribe to the channel now. Share this video with someone you love, someone who's stuck, not because they're weak, but because they've been living from an outdated identity. Because here, in this space, we don't just talk about changing our lives. We learn to renew our minds, restore our vision, and rebuild our world from the inside out. The root is identity. The fruit is reality. Choose your seed wisely, because your life will grow from it.